Welcome to The Business Behind Your Business, the podcast where we delve into the financial strategies and insights that drive success for small and medium-sized business owners. I'm your host, Paul Sweeney, and in each episode we bring you expert guests who share practical advice, real-world experiences, and actionable tips to empower you on your business journey. Whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur or just starting out, get ready to uncover the secrets to success and gain valuable insights into the business behind your business. Welcome back to the Business Behind Your Business podcast. I'm your host, Paul Sweeney. And one thing is constant in our lives as business owners, and that is the fact that there is change. We are constantly facing change. And the way we do business today is very different to the way we did business 5, 10, 30 years ago. And that is certainly the case when it comes to how we actually make sales. 30 years ago, you couldn't make a sale unless you had a brick and mortar store, a shop front for people to come and actually see your product and buy. But today, we don't even need to know the names of our customers. We don't even need to physically interact with them. We don't even need to be in the same country as our customers anymore because we have this access to this concept called e-commerce, which has changed the way we do business. And dynamically, it has had, an exponential growth, particularly in the last 5 years, in terms of the number of e-commerce stores. And there's some statistics around this, and our guest today is going to tear these statistics apart and tell us some of the truth behind them. But according to Shopify, there's over nearly 5.5 million active stores across 175 countries. WooCommerce, another supplier in the market or another platform, over 6 million live websites. And Amazon, of course, over 638 billion in sales worldwide. But if we peel back the layers of those statistics, there's some disturbing truths that we're going to sort of unpack a bit. But joining us today to help us delve into this, why is e-commerce so successful and why did so many people get it wrong, is Matthew Stafford, who's the founder of Build, Grow, Scale, expert in conversion rate optimization, sustainable e-commerce growth strategies. Now, Matthew's background, he's been working in business, not just with e-commerce, but he's got a long history with businesses, bricks and mortar businesses, concrete locations, software-based, the whole gambit. But one of the best things about Matthew and why we've got him on the podcast today is his expertise in helping business owners through his business, Build, Grow, Scale, helping business owners optimize their operations, drive higher sales, and avoid the common pitfalls that most people encounter when they come to setting up an e-commerce business. We're thrilled to have him here. Matthew, welcome to the Business Behind Your Business podcast.
Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
I certainly am, because there are so many traps and pitfalls here and so many failed e-commerce ventures out there. So many people are getting it wrong, so they need a lot of help because we have limited resources. We want to invest them wisely. We want to make sure our efforts reap the rewards that we deserve from our business, but we're getting it wrong. We're absolutely getting it wrong.
Yeah, so I think just what I was thinking when you were giving that introduction is I remember 10 years ago when I first started selling online, and everybody kind of call it the wild, wild west. You could get away with a lot of things. And so we made a lot of money, but what we realized is it got harder and harder because people started seeing what was available. And now instead of me competing with Walmart, there's thousands of other people that want to sell whatever I'm selling online too. And instead of them just servicing their area, now because of the internet, they can sell anywhere in the world. And we have clients that are in Australia, UK, all the English-speaking countries all around the world that are all competing for those same eyeballs.
Yeah. It's such an amazing change to how we did business, because when I was growing up, you only actually did business with your local community. You rarely went outside. Okay, to go to a larger town was like an hour, 2-hour drive, and you had to have something worthwhile to go and do it. But now we can hop online, find a connect and purchase from somebody on the other side of the globe. It's so easy as a consumer, but as a business owner, it's hard work.
Yeah, before COVID, only about 10% of sales were done online. So people who've been selling online for 10, 15 years, it feels like everybody's doing it and it's always been happening. But again, just 4 short years ago, only about 10% of sales were done online. And then during COVID, it got all the way up to 37%. And then now it's back down, or 33%. Now it's like 27. So even still, I would say if we likened e-commerce to a baseball game, we're probably in the third inning, maybe fourth inning. There's a lot more potential and a lot more capacity. So some people are like, oh, well, I missed those golden years. And to be totally honest, there was just as much failure back then as there is now. And I think that now is the greatest time ever, because what took us 15 people to run a business before, now we can do it with 5 guys or 5 people. Honestly, most women do a better job than the men do, but you give them some AI tools and now they can do their job super efficiently. And so you can run a much bigger business with a much smaller team and be a lot more profitable, which is something that wasn't even available or even on our mind back then.
Yeah, a lot of the tools that are now available, we could only dream of 20, 30 years ago. And in fact, one of my frustrations was working with small, medium business owners is having access to the resources and the tools was beyond their scope. They couldn't pay for it because they were so expensive. But now we've got access to so many really powerful tools. We can do almost anything, but should we be doing anything? Should we be doing just almost anything? There's got to be a reason why we don't just run out and start an e-commerce store. There's got to be a reason behind it. So what in your view is the most important reason that we should consider setting up an e-commerce store as part of our sales strategy?
Yeah, what I would say, the majority of people that I see, obviously there's going to be lots of edge cases, but most people had a problem. They found a solution and it worked really well. And so now they sell that solution or they sell that product that fixed their problem. And the people that do that, I would say, are consistently more successful than people going, oh, I can make a whole bunch of money doing this thing. And they try to go do that, but they're not interested in it. Or they're competing with people who know the product or know their audience way better than they do. And so one of the reasons why what we do is so predictably successful is because we take the guesswork out of it. We really use data and analytics. And so the way that a person interacts with your website is the same in Australia as it is in the UK, as it is in the United States. People are still people. And the way that they browse and look at stuff is very predictable. And so after you watch enough websites and see what works and what doesn't work, you see patterns. And for us, we're really not interested in the latest trick or hack or whatever. What we really care about is human behavior and the way that those people interact with your site or the way that you deal with them as a customer. So what I mean by that is I will also say that the most successful businesses over time are people who have a very strong customer-centric view of, we're going to take care of the customer. Even if we don't make money on this sale, we'll make it down the road. They play the long game. It's not really the cash grab up front, but it's running a really good business, taking very good care of their customers. There's a reason why Amazon dominated, because so many people, when they got into e-commerce, they thought, oh, I can get behind my computer and I don't have to talk to anybody. Well, they did a much better job of taking care of the customer. And that's why they continue to grow and continue to dominate. Now they have the economies of scale that most people don't have.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is that the strategy, the process, the methodology, it's not about the latest trend. It's not about the latest software. It's about a core business and doing that core business really well. And whether you sell face-to-face or online, you've still got to focus on how you do your business.
Yeah, 100%. And so for us, I always tell people your website is the conversation that you're having with your client when you can't be there. So either your website communicates very well and it's really clear, or it's confusing and they don't understand. Most people, if you think about it, I always say traffic is not your problem. If the average e-commerce store converts at 2%, maybe 3%, that means for every 100 visitors that you get to your site, only 2 or 3 people are buying. That means 97 other people had raised their hand, clicked on an ad or Google searched you, came to your site, and they left without buying. So either they don't trust you or they have unanswered questions. And I would say more often than not, obviously there's some trust issues, but if you have a nice site, they're going to trust it. And it's that you're not clear. You're bringing up questions that they need answers to before they can make a decision. And so that's really what we're coaching people through is if they're coming to your site, instead of you looking at your site as how do I sell more things, look at it from the consumer side. How do I find what I'm looking for? Or how do I find a solution to my problem? And as soon as you make that little shift, your website will actually make a lot more sales than if you think about how do I sell more instead of you want to flip it and go, how do I actually find my problem? How do I find my solution? And is it clear?
Wow. I think in just what you've just said there, that's absolutely a goldmine for any business owner, because I think we get that wrong so often. So many business owners have got that wrong, and I'm going to put my hand up here and say guilty, because
Me too.
accountants are some of the worst offenders here in telling you what we want to sell to you, and not hearing what are the business needs, or what are the needs, what's the information that you're looking for, what's the solution to the problem that you need fixing.
Yeah, a lot of the problems that we found was because we were making them. So I'm not here to say, hey, we didn't make these mistakes. I'm here to say we made these mistakes and still survived because we stopped making them and made better decisions. And really, we always look at the website and say, is it Homer Simpson simple? Like most of the people that we engage with, the majority of the stores are doing about 100,000 a month or more before we will actually partner with them and do this. So they already have something that's working. It's just not optimized. So we go in there, create some clarity and get huge lifts for them. And it makes the store a lot more profitable. So instead of the mentality of, okay, average e-commerce is 2 to 3%, everybody was like, I need more traffic. I need more traffic. And in my head, I thought the exact opposite. I thought, no, I actually need to sell 2 or 3 more of those 97 people that left, and I'll double my business on the same amount of ad spend. If I'm getting double the number of customers on the same amount of ad spend, it goes back to that old adage that Dan Kennedy said, he who can spend the most to acquire a customer will win. Well, if I'm making 6 sales for every 3 that they make, I can spend more money to make more, and I'm going to dominate my market. And that's literally when I switched from how do I get more traffic? How do I get more traffic to how do I make my website so clear that they want to do business with me, or that they find the answer to their problem and they want to spend their money with me because it's easy.
Yeah, absolutely. Uh, you've made it sound so simple.
Well, many times the reason why we make the problems is because we do overcomplicate it. I'll share a tip that it doesn't matter if you're in e-commerce or you're lead gen or your website. It literally is you want them to book a call. This is the very first thing that we do when we engage with a client. We go to their thank you page, which is where the last page on your website that they see. We have a little pop-up that comes up and we ask a question. What was the one thing that almost made you not buy? So these people just spent money, or they just gave you their phone number and their email, their personal information. What was the one thing that almost made you not do that? Those people will tell you what they didn't understand, what wasn't clear, where they felt resistance, all these things. And then we take that data and we go back through the website and we make it better. And every single time we get better and better conversions.
Wow. Yeah. No, that's great advice. Look, before we sort of tie into some of the mistakes that people are making, we mentioned some statistics at the beginning, and I said that we'd probably tear those apart because, we're looking at 5.5 active stores with Shopify and 6 million with WooCommerce, but yeah, you've got some interesting stats behind those stats, which sort of tell us, I guess, the truth really, of what's going on.
Yeah, Shopify says that there's almost 3,000 new stores started every day. But out of those 3,000, like 2,900 of them never make a sale. So there's a lot of people that will open a store and have good intentions, or they'll put a bunch of stuff up and they just think like, oh, if I put this stuff online, people will come buy it. But again, it goes back to the question. They're in the mindset of how do I sell more stuff instead of how do I solve a problem, or how do I make it so clear that it's easy for them to go through the process without getting sidetracked. And so, yeah, we look at our stats over the last 10 years. We had about 1,000 members in our membership. We've had over 127, 130 some. I've stopped counting a few years ago just because it doesn't really matter. We have enough success that we know what we're doing. But, and then we have like 25, 27 stores at the 10 million mark and several that have done over that. So out of the 1,000 members, we've had 150 plus hit over $1 million. That's a 15% really very successful store compared to 2,900 that never make a sale. So their odds are like 0.0001 are going to be successful. And if you get help or a mentor or listen to podcasts like yours, where you get coaching through how to operate a business, the business behind the business, which is really the strategy to make it work, you have a much, much better percentage of winning and actually using this avenue of making money to be successful.
Yeah, and look, you also mentioned okay, we tend to focus on the $1 million level as a key to success, but you've got so many businesses that are also turning over like 10, 20,000 a month. And if you talk to a lot of small business owners, if they were turning over 20,000 a month, that's a huge success for them. Because what they were turning over before was like 5,000 a month. So that's a big, big change.
Yeah, I'm very, very careful to not think that I have a definition of what's successful for everybody, because we have several clients that when they got to that $10,000 mark, that's literally what their intentions were, and that is very successful for them because they built it so that they could drive their kids to school every day or to be at every soccer game. It wasn't a matter of trying to get to $1 million a month or multi-million dollars a month. So success is literally different things for everyone. But what I will say is even those $10,000, $20,000 a month stores, they're still doing the fundamentals that create a business that people want to do business with in order for them to be successful, regardless of how many dollars they turn over.
Yeah. Great. Well, we've talked about how many stores there are and why we've talked about there's a lot of failure out there. So there's still a lot of opportunity, particularly if you're going to do it well. You mentioned some mistakes already, but what are some of the most common mistakes that people make when they're setting up e-commerce?
Okay. Yeah. This is what I would say I see the most is because typically when the store owners are new, they're doing all their own customer service. And so every question that people email in or ask, they automatically assume that everybody has that question and they go put that on their website. And so over a few months period, they've added so much stuff to their website that it's actually made it confusing. It's not clear. They're answering questions or they're bringing up questions that maybe the majority of their users don't have. I would say that in the beginning, when we get onto a store and start optimizing it, most of the wins are from us removing stuff, taking things off the site that made it confusing and leaving it very simple, very clear. We know that like your search traffic is the highest converting traffic on your site, and they typically spend twice as much as the average user. So if our whole job is to question why things are working and why things aren't working and how to make it better. So when we go through that data, what's the analysis of why is that search traffic so much more valuable? It means the person found what they were looking for, and so now they convert much higher, spend more money. So really what that tells us is the majority of people that come to your site would spend more money or would convert if they can find what they're looking for easier. And so navigation and search are really, really important on your website to make it super simple for people to find what they're looking for.
I still find it surprising the number of websites I go to that don't have a search facility obvious on the site. You can still do it, but when you've got to do the hard work, I go, well, okay, I can spend the hard work on this site, or I can go to this site where I can just search and get my answer in a matter of seconds.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. There's a reason why when you go to YouTube, the whole top center of the button or the whole top center of the site is a search bar. Same with Amazon. So we've done that on all of our e-commerce sites. The very first thing that we do, we ask that question on the thank you page. We add a search bar and try to filter. So we used to think, and I'll admit, in the beginning, we thought, oh, if we have less than 4 products, we don't need search because they can just see the products. Well, what we realized when we started tracking what people put in the search, they don't always just type in what product they're looking for. They'll type in their problem or they'll describe what's going on. And so now all of a sudden, when we started tracking that, we're like, oh, okay, they gave us new product ideas. They told us the language that they were searching for. We use that in our product descriptions. We make that match what's coming up in search and our sales go up. So it's a discovery tool just as much as it is for the owner as it is a discovery tool for the consumer trying to find what they're looking for.
So, the website you mentioned is critical. The search is critical. I see a lot of podcasters, a lot of creators created these e-commerce sites, but they've not made a sale. There's you can't just put it out there and expect somebody to find it.
Right.
I think it comes back to you talking about solving somebody's problem.
Yeah. And the truth of the matter is if your site's very easy to use, like you said, you go to the ones that it's easy to use. Well, if you did that and it was easy to use, do you tell people about it? You do. You start spreading the word. Well, that's a warm person. That person's going to convert much higher than someone that found your site randomly. And so over time, that starts to create a compound effect of you get more visitors. So now you have more data in order to optimize the journey, and it continues to get better and better over time. If you have the mentality of I'm just doing this as a cash grab, I'm going to make a bunch of money and be done, chances are your competition is much better than that nowadays. And you're gonna, like you said, you'll never make a sale because you're competing with people who are willing to go through the hard part, the hard stuff, figure it out and do a good job so that the person wants to come back and buy again and again and again. One of the metrics that we look at for a store to be healthy and growing is that your repeat customer rate is at least 25%. So you want 1 in 4 customers on a monthly basis to come back. And that's going to create a much healthier store than someone that doesn't have any repeat business, that they're trying to make a living off of the front end sales. Typically, nowadays with the e-commerce, what we see is the first time someone buys from you, you'll break even or maybe even spend a little bit of money. But if you do a good job, those people will come back and be a lifetime user or multiple purchases. And those are the sales that you actually make the most money on because you're not spending to acquire them over and over.
Yeah. So one of the key things we look at when we're looking at how the metrics to focus on with growing your business is, I guess, the number of customers and how frequently that customer purchases from you. And then yes. I guess the third part of that is the average value of each transaction with a customer. So if you've got trust and they're keeping coming back to you, but they're also going to buy more each time, then that's an easier way to grow your business.
100%. Those are the metrics that we're trying to always improve. How many people are adding to the cart? How many people are making it all the way through to the purchase? How many people are repeating? And then how many of those can we capture, to get a higher average order value? So if they buy one, can you add a second one for, 30% off so that your average order value goes up? Because again, the person that can spend the most is going to be able to get the most customers. And so if your average order value goes from $100 to $130, and now you have a whole new, I would say like a subset of customers that are willing to spend that much money, you're gonna actually be able to buy market share that way.
Yeah. It's interesting that we've been working through some of the mistakes that people are making, but at the same time, you've been giving us some of the great tips on how to optimize your business and improve your conversion rates. Any other key things that are a must do for anybody setting up an e-commerce site?
Yeah, I'll give you two different principles that, again, it's one of the things that we do. We call it a best practice. So on the form field on your checkout, if you look at probably 99 out of 100 websites that you go to, it will say email and phone number. Well, we track all of the errors in those checkouts on some really big stores, and we noticed that we get a lot of errors in the email and the phone number. Well, we wanted to try to reduce those number of errors. And I was reading a book by Robert Cialdini called Persuasion. And in there, he tells a story about they had 10 people try to cut in line. And they said, "Hey, do you mind if I cut in line?" They let 2 people cut. The other 8 people, they told no. So then he tried again, 10 new people, but he gave them a reason. "Hey, do you mind if I cut in line? My kids are going to be late for school." Well, then just by adding a reason, 8 people were allowed to cut and only 2 people were rejected. So it flipped the odds. And so we're thinking like, well, we're asking them for their email, but we're not telling them why. Maybe if we tell them why, that will reduce the errors. And so we put in the email required for order confirmation. That reduced our errors by 279%. So almost 3 times it reduced the number of errors 3 times. And so we thought, wow, that worked really well. And what we also noticed is our abandoned recovery went up. Well, why is that? Well, we have to figure this out. So if we tell them email required for order confirmation, your order confirmation email is opened 85% of the time. It's the most opened email that you'll ever send. So when they think, okay, this is for my order confirmation, they give you their good email, not their junk one, not their spam one. So now all of a sudden, our abandoned recoveries, we got more of them. We made more money. We brought more people back for the sale. So then we did that for the phone. We put phone required for shipping notifications. Who doesn't want to know when their item ships? So now all of a sudden, we have a better phone number and less errors. And now when we send a abandoned recovery SMS, we get more sales. And so just by changing the language in those 2 form fields, we've seen as much as a 17% lift, which is right where the money happens. So instantly overnight, your store makes more sales, recovers more lost sales, and you're more profitable just by giving them a little bit more information and explaining to them why you need that.
Yeah, some great advice there. And certainly, it's probably not the first thing that people would think of, but it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And for us, if I optimize your homepage, that means that that's working better. That maybe gets them to your product page or to your category page. It doesn't make you more money. But if I optimize your checkout right away, you're going to make more money from day one. And then every other page that I fix is going to get more people to that checkout that's working well. So we actually take a counterintuitive approach. Everybody looks at their homepage and wants to make that better. I want to make where they give you money easier for them to give you money. When they do that, then you're more profitable and we can have more time to fix the store.
Yeah, great advice. So, look, you share some great tips. So, just summing up, I think e-commerce, it's not going away. It's a key strategy. It's here to stay.
Yeah, I truly believe that, like I said, we're in the 3rd or 4th inning. I'm more excited about what I do and get up more excited and more energized to do this than I did 10 years ago. Yeah, I really believe that we'll get to the point where it's 60 or 70% of stuff is sold online.
And I think the key to being successful is almost identical to any other kind of business. You have to make sure you understand the needs of your customer and
Yeah.
make it easy for them to purchase from you.
Yeah. And the truth of the matter is, a lot of times we think that we're our customer. And the truth of the matter is, if you look at the data, let the data make the decisions because it's non-emotional. Data is agnostic. People go, "Oh, well, what type of e-commerce do you work on?" And I'm like, honestly, to us, the product doesn't matter because what we're dealing with is the human nature of how does a person interact with your website, and how do we make it clear and easy to do business with? If you do that one thing, if you're making it easy for your customer instead of from the mindset of how do I make more sales, your website's going to be way more clear and a lot more simple, and you'll actually make more sales than if you're trying to be salesy.
Yeah, great. Look, Matthew's shared some absolute goldmine tips with us today. If you think you want to know more, then I'd encourage you to take a closer look at Build, Grow, Scale. Matthew, how do our listeners get involved, and what's the best way to find out more about the program?
Yeah, so you can go to our website, buildgrowscale.com /blog. There's all kinds of free information and where we go and break down this stuff. Our goal is we're going to give you a whole bunch of information for free so that you can grow it to the point where when it's really busy, you need our help. And then we would love to help you. And when it gets to that point, you can always send me an email to Matt@BuildGrowScale. And I'd love to do an audit and just kind of run through your site, give you some tips, help you make some more sales.
Fantastic. And as always, we'll share those links in the show notes and on the businessbehindyourbusiness.com website, where you'll be able to find out all our past podcast information and tips to help you grow a great business as well. Really appreciate our time with Matthew today. It's been fantastic. Some absolute goldmine tips there. And share them. Yeah, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with another business owner that needs to know these tools, these principles to help them grow a stronger, more profitable, enjoyable business. Well, thanks, Matt. It's been an absolute pleasure. Really appreciate your time and you sharing some great tips with our audience today.
Yeah, thank you very much.
That's a wrap for this episode of The Business Behind Your Business. We hope you found today's discussion insightful and valuable for your business journey. Before we go, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your favourite platform. Share it with fellow business owners who could benefit, and send in your burning questions because we love hearing from you. Missed any of our previous episodes or looking for additional resources to help grow your business? Head over to our website at thebusinessbehindyourbusiness.com. There you'll find our full archive of past episodes, along with show notes, transcripts, and links to valuable resources mentioned in each episode. Your journey to business success continues at thebusinessbehindyourbusiness.com. Until next time, stay inspired, stay informed, and keep building the business of your dreams.